welcome to Ideas with Impact podcast. Today on the show, I am so honored to welcome Stephanie Big Eagle, who is an Indigenous hand poke tattoo artist, an amazing author of a book called Thunderbird Rising. She's a model, dancer, and a great speaker. So, welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm so looking forward to our conversation and just to find out everything about you and your journey and everything. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. And
awesome.
you're up in Canada, so this is one of my first interactions with, Canadian side. So that's really good.
Well, welcome. Well, can you share more about your journey of reconnecting with your Indigenous heritage?
Sure. So I was on my father's side, I am Lakota and Dakota. My mother says that I was always raised up being told that I was Iroquois too on my mother's side, but my mother, she didn't connect with that side at all. She didn't know her family over there. So the side that I connect with is the Lakota and Dakota side.
Okay.
And I was around my father till I was around 3 years old. And
Mhm,
then my parents split up. And so then I was removed from that side of my family. And
mhm,
I was raised up with my mom till I was about 9 years old. And then after that, I was raised with a step family, a white step family. And
mhm,
they didn't know or teach me anything about my culture. So I was pretty much raised in an environment that was separated
mhm,
from my culture, from our traditions, from our way of life.
mhm,
So, what encouraged me to go back out and connect with that side of myself was my own visions and dreams,
mhm,
because I was purposefully kept away from that side of my lineage
mhm,
and from those teachings. And I was brought up in an environment that taught me that it was not a good place for me to be.
mhm,
And so I believed that. So it was actually those dreams, those visits that I was having from my relatives from that side of my lineage
mhm.
that encouraged me to go and find out more
When did
about
that
that.
started for you? When did you start having these dreams?
I would say the first one was probably when I was 19.
Hmm.
I started having visits from a relative,
Hmm.
and he would show up in his traditional regalia, which is what traditional clothing, that's what our term for it is,
Hmm.
regalia. And so he had his bonnet on, which is the chief's headdress with all the feathers, and he had his buckskin clothes with horsehair hanging from it. He had all of that on. So I knew which side of my lineage he was coming from. And he would approach me with the best energy. And if you understand the kind of way that I was raised, it was very abusive, it was very dark,
Hmm.
it was very unloving. And so for someone to come and approach me in my dreams in that way, and all he did was come and hug me and smile,
Hmm.
and he would the energy that he shared with me was unlike anything that I had ever felt before.
Hmm.
And so through just showing up in those dreams and embracing me with appropriate affection, with appropriate love, like a grandfather type of energy,
Hmm.
I started to say, hey, there's something there that's calling me that I need to go and to start looking deeper into.
Did you feel like you were alone? Like, did you had some sort of community where you could lean on or had some sort of help? Or this is something that you embarked on your own?
Yes, it's something that I embarked on my own. I had to go and find my father because I hadn't talked to my father in 20 years
Hmm.
since I was 3 years old. So this was a couple years of these dreams, recurring dreams coming and waking me back up to that side of myself.
Mhm.
And so it took a couple years of that process. And then I have a twin brother and a little sister who are also, they're my full brother and sister. So we had the same mom, same dad.
Mhm.
So I started reaching out to them and saying, hey, I think we should go and try to find, visit our family on that side.
Mhm.
Because all my family from my dad's side lived on the reservation.
Mhm.
And so we started opening up those lines of communication to try to get back in touch with that side of our family.
Mm.
And
Mm.
23 years old is when I first went back to my grandmother's house. My father was out there. A lot of my aunts and uncles were out there. So 23 years old is when I went to my first Wachipi, it's called, or the traditional powwow,
Mhm.
and saw my dad again for the first time in 20 years.
Wow. And how was that for you? Was it emotional
Oh,
or?
it was
Mhm.
definitely emotional. But growing up in an environment where, I stuck out like a sore thumb,
Mhm.
I physically and the way I thought, the way I behaved, I just stuck out like a sore thumb.
Mm.
And so when I went to that powwow and I was looking around and I saw so many people who were reflecting back to me the way my physical appearance,
Mhm.
it was the first time that I ever really felt like, wow, this is where I belong.
Mm. That's beautiful. Now, with your connection with your grandfather, that this is something that you really started to like again looking into and be like, there's something more to it, and then that way you started um, your journey.
Yes, it was definitely those dreams
Mm.
because in the way I was raised, being told that my people were no good and that I should stay away from them, I believed it.
Mm.
And so, with my relative coming in the dreams and showing me something different, then I started to break down those
Mm.
stereotypes in my own mind that I
Mm.
had built up towards myself, towards that side of my family. And that encouraged me to go out and to reconnect with my family. And
Mm.
that started the whole journey of learning about my culture and who I really was and accepting all the parts of me because I'm mixed.
Mhm.
So it was a long journey of an identity crisis that I had to go, but that I had to go through. But it
Mhm.
was my grandfather that really started that for me and let me know that there was something that was really valuable and really worth looking into
Mm.
about who I am and who I come from.
You're just giving me goosies because I'm learning about this whole. I mean, I'm originally from Poland myself, so I've been in Canada now for 35 years. Um, and when I came to Canada in 1990, I was only 15 years old. But I felt personally very connected with the Indigenous. Um, to a point where I would collect all different things. And I'm not sure if this is something from my past life or something, but I was so connected. And I deep inside couldn't understand of how our society could have done what they've done, especially knowing what was happening in Canada in like what 10 years ago when they found all these graves in these schools. It was horrible. But for me, for example, I have like feathers everywhere. I have built about 10 years ago, I have built a beautiful medicine wheel garden where, I spend a lot of my time in there. I'm very connected with nature as well. And I just find it so beautiful. And I wish that more people could connect to that and have that kind of understanding that um, the Indigenous were the first people here. And the culture is so beautiful, yet we have destroyed it in a way.
Yes, I think that was the original idea. And so we hear the stories about how the indigenous people reacted to newcomers
Mhm.
on the land, which was welcoming, right? Teaching them
Yeah.
the ways of the land, treating them like honored guests. And so it was a choice that was made at that time to act outside of that, because there were agreements that were made between nations where we were meant to walk side by side in harmony, sharing our energies, sharing our different ways of living with one another and sharing the land.
Mm-hmm.
That was how it was supposed to be, but a different choice was made.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it was something that most people would have chosen. And unfortunately, that's what was carried forward
Mm-hmm.
because those in charge made that decision. And if we connect that to what's happening today, we can see that reflection in the government, the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
The decisions that are being made right now, the people don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people don't want that. But it seems like it's an almost powerless kind of authority that's making these decisions and carrying them out against the will of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that can be connected back to what originally happened here, too. I do not think that if people really understood what was happening over here, really had full knowledge and truth of what was being carried out and decided by those who were in charge at the time, that the people would have stood behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not one of those people who looks at and judges people for the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I was back in the day, and that was part of the issues that I had to work through
Mm-hmm.
myself. But I think that those energies and what they decided to carry out was almost, I call it a disease of separation,
Mm-hmm.
a sickness, an infection that came into the hearts of people. And I believe that it came first from over in Europe. There were indigenous people in Europe too,
Mm-hmm.
and they lived very close to the land, and they had a very similar way of life to the indigenous people here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were attacked by those people that carried that sort of energy. And they were removed from their close relationship with the earth. And they went through a type of, genocide and assimilation as well. We were just the last people to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still a connection there. There's still, it's fresher in our history of what happened. But with European people too, they went through it too before we did.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are put through that sort of trauma, it's that infection of the heart, that disease of separation is very contagious,
Mm-hmm.
and it spreads. So especially as a child, if you go through that, then you end up repeating the cycle. It happens. It's a cycle of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You're taught that as a child. You're exposed to trauma and into horrible conditions. And then as you grow up, if you don't heal from it, you pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
You do that to children. You do that to other people. And I think that's what we're dealing with here. More than anything is an energy, a disease that's being spread amongst people of all colors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to look at as to what we need to change and to heal from.
I think that there is a huge shift happening right now in our society. I think there's still the two sides that are pulling back and forth, but I think more and more people are being awakened to what is happening and are realizing that, you know, healing the past, healing the traumas is so important. So that way we can move on. If it's not us, then it's the new generations coming on. So it's easier for them to pour all that love to the next generation. But what my understanding is that sometimes it takes quite a bit, with up to 7 generations to heal. Is that true?
I believe so. But I also believe that there are people who come. For example, I would think that I'm one of these people that within my genetic line, some of us come and decide to deal with that trauma within one lifetime. And there's many different labels or terms for these kind of people. We tend to be the ones who are treated differently when we're grown up, when we're growing up. For example, being called the black sheep or carrying that sort of energy, being the generational curse breakers, dealing with intergenerational trauma. Some of us come and decide to deal with that all within one lifetime. And I really do believe that what we heal within ourselves heals 7 generations before and 7 generations to come after us. And I know that I'm one of those people within my family who has decided to do that. I am healing trauma that my mother, my grandmother, and generations before couldn't heal. And as a result of that, it's being reflected in the lines that are going to come from me or that have come from me, so that I'm not passing it on. And then it gives all of us a chance to rise up together. But I do, and generally, yes, it does take 7 generations for it to completely clear and something new to be established.
Well, we won't be able to see that, but I really hope that our children and their children will see in a completely different. To be honest with you, I think I feel lucky to live in today's world because I am able to see the changes that when I was a little girl, I knew that there was something wrong, and I couldn't express it the way that I can express it now, in my adulthood, right? Because again, like we all go through traumas and we go through different turbulence in our life and things like that. But now as an adult, I can really see it and I can pass on that message to my own children. So, yeah.
Yes, I believe so too.
Hmm.
I've done nothing but seems like continuously heal
Hmm.
for the last couple
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah. It's a lot of healing. Totally. Like you said, past 7 generation, that's like a lot. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a
Yeah.
lot of responsibility.
So, what does is it called hand poke tattooing means? Like, what
Yes.
is that?
So hand poke is a method of traditional tattooing
Hmm.
that we use nothing but our hands and a needle that's attached to or secured to like a piece of wood or
Hmm.
something like that. And so the method is just one dot at a time of putting ink underneath the skin. And so that is my method. I've been practicing that for about a decade now. And the most important part of that is with the traditional aspect is that these designs are telling stories.
Hmm.
They can provide healing. They can connect somebody with their ancestors. And it's like connecting the the unseen world with the physical world through the tattoo itself.
Hmm.
And traditionally, the inks used were also very healing, non toxic inks that came from the earth. And the tools that were used could be bones or porcupine quills or different forms of natural tools, all that had an important synergistic effect that elevated the person who was tattooed.
Mm.
So it was a very, and still is a very spiritual practice.
Mm. Is there any, so what impacts, for example, people, let's say when they receive this tattoo, um, is there also some sort of like a trauma that they went through that they want that to represent something for them? Or, um, I mean, obviously everybody, when they get a tattoo, there is a story to it, right? But do you see it that there's an impact on them receiving that tattoo?
As far as healing,
Yeah.
it depends on who's coming to get the tattoo because not everyone is coming to receive that for
Okay.
healing. A lot of the women that I work with are coming for healing. And I have had some feedback from them that it has helped them. And however, I don't think that a lot of people are truly aware of the importance of tattooing is, and it can take someone many years to understand. And so I'm not going to necessarily receive that feedback. But what I can speak from is my own experience of how I have grown with my own traditional markings, those that I received from artists who were, and I want to stress that the artist that you work with is extremely important, because traditionally the tattoo artist from, say, someone from my tribe back generations ago would have been chosen because of their ability to channel designs, their ability to work with certain helpers who can bring in that healing, who have that sort of medicine that you work with, telling someone's story and bridging the two worlds, the unseen world and this world. So you can't just, in my opinion, you can't just go to any artist and receive that kind of an impact from getting a tattoo. And there are some people who just get a tattoo that doesn't have any meaning or doesn't really tell a story. And so if I would say you're going to get a tattoo in this day and age, be very careful of who you go and receive energy from. So, and then be very conscious of the design that you're getting tattooed on your skin, because it's like you becoming one with that. Symbols carry a lot of power and energy. And so one of the things that I do is that I tap into somebody's energy before tattooing them, and I can receive the designs that are meant for them. It's not me creating it. It's a channel that's coming that's coming through me. So I'm able to tell their story through the designs that are being given to me to give to them. And so it's a very personal journey. But through the markings that I've received through working with artists like that, it has changed my life. In fact, I would not be tattooing if I didn't receive my chin and forehead tattoo. It created that opening or that portal or that opportunity for me. And it changed my life for the better.
Can you share that inspiration behind the tattoo with us?
I had always, for about, maybe not always, okay, but for about the last 11 to 12 years, when I really started to look into my culture, really to stand in my culture, and because I had to go through a long journey of reconnecting and learning about it. And so when I really started to stand strong in it, I started to learn about the traditional tattooing. And back then, it wasn't clear whether my tribe practiced tattooing, whether most Native American tribes practiced tattooing. It was something that was still very hidden and unclear, because through the process of genocide, particularly cultural genocide, that's one of the customs and traditions that was particularly targeted amongst Native American tribes, was our traditional tattooing customs. And then came in the brainwashing that tattoos were bad, right? Through Christianity spread those concepts. The tattooing was something that was no good. And in fact, associated you with demonic sort of energies. So I had to break through all of that within myself, and then deep dive for information that let me know that my tribe did practice those things. And because there was somebody that I was in a close relationship at that time from the Maori Nation and the Indigenous people of New Zealand, and they have their traditional tattoos that's called tamoko. And they had only been removed maybe one generation from their teachings. So it was very still intact for them. So the person that I was in this relationship with highly encouraged me, because I was interested in it already, he highly encouraged me to come over and to receive chin and forehead tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
But I was said I wasn't going to do that unless I knew and that that was practiced within my tribe. And so I just happened to come, I can't even remember the original source that I found
Mm-hmm.
that supported that we did have chin markings, that we did have forehead markings, not as extensive as what I have now,
Mm-hmm.
but that there were lines, there were dots, there were those things in the placements that I have my traditional tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. And I followed my heart after that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I accepted his invitation and I went over to New Zealand and I met with Talmoko Tohuna, which is a traditional tattoo practitioner of the Maori way. And they practice the same sort of method that I practice, which is with the designs, which is where they tap into someone's energy and they tell their story through the channeled design that is received. The way I was taught is that their ancestors meet and my ancestors would meet up in, the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would pass down the design that was meant for that person through the artist, through the practitioner. And so the designs that he was given for me are what we see here. And they told my story. And, so I would share some of my visions and dreams with him. And we went back and forth a couple times, and this is what was for me. And I shared the night before we had our session, the spiral came to me, and I had one of a female relative ancestor come to me in a dream and show me the spiral. And she said to me that you should get that tattooed. And that's right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, and before going in and receiving my markings, that person that I was in a relationship at the time, he had to drag me in. I was not, I would have backed out if it wasn't for him. And so it has taken me about a decade of walking with these markings to really come into full empowerment with it, to understand it, to not care what anybody thinks anymore about them, to just when people pass judgment on it, to just let it roll off of me like water, and to understand who I am through them. It's a journey. So,
No, that's
oh,
beautiful.
go ahead.
Yeah, that's good for you. It's so hard as an individual not to get around with people who judge. It's really hard, and I know because from my own experience, it's the same thing. Um, and I'm applauding you for that, standing up your ground and be like, "This is who I am," and it's honoring for you
Thank
to
you.
coming and honoring your culture. So there's
And I will,
also, yeah.
I just wanted to say that ever since I received these markings too, my ability to communicate with, through my
Intensified.
intuition to
Mm-hmm.
vastly intensified.
Mm-hmm.
And the head is considered the most sacred part of the body in many indigenous cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when you receive your markings,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to intensify your ability to communicate in that sense with your own intuition, with the earth, with all of our relatives on the earth. And I'm talking about plant, elemental, spirit nations, not just human nations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about it all. And that is something that vastly increased after I received my markings.
Mm. No, that's very nice. What I've noticed too, reading and doing my own research, is that a lot of natives or indigenous people all across the world had some sort of markings on their bodies, going back generations and generations. So same thing with women. Mostly women, I think, were mostly tattooed because they were mostly at home, staying with the children, and that's what they were doing. They were almost like a shaman. Women, they were very well, not like they were knowledgeable about this stuff. So passing on this is incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, my honor.
Yeah.
And I know in the there's some lineage I have on my European side that also the women were keepers of tattoos, and they also had chin and forehead markings.
Mm-hmm.
There's several, even in the Nordic side, the Scandinavian side, where Viking, aka
Mm-hmm.
Viking, they had those, and then there was Indigenous European. um, I can't remember what they're called, but it starts with a B. But those women also had chin and forehead tattoos, and the women were the keepers of that knowledge and that tradition.
Mm. Yes. Let's keep that tradition going and let's spread that love and courage to anybody who is trying to look into, um, their ancestry and everything, just to follow it, follow the heart. So,
Yes.
are there any specific teachings or lessons from your native indigenous heritage that you hold close to your heart and that you apply in your everyday life?
Well, yes, there's a prophecy that also comes with teachings, and that's from the White Buffalo Calf Woman prophecy. So this is something that I share all the time on my platforms, all of them, about the teachings of the White Buffalo Calf Woman and that prophecy.
Mhm,
I share more about the prophecy on my
mhm,
platforms because, and my connection to that is through dreams as well. And that's why I share it so much, is because it was through these prophecies and this way of life
mhm,
that I came to find, to bring myself out of the darkness of what I had to endure as a
mhm,
child and in my adulthood, the darkness, that disease of separation that causes people to do really horrible things
mhm,
to one another. And so this prophecy speaks of a woman, a spirit woman, and I say she's from the stars, because just because.
mhm,
But her name is Pdesawi in our language, which means white buffalo calf woman. And so she appeared to our two of our hunters of the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota Nation. So let me make that clear. She appeared to two of our hunters 19 generations ago. And one of the hunters saw her as the spirit woman that she was, respected her for her power, and saw immediately that she was sacred.
mhm,
The other hunter had already been infected with that disease of separation,
mhm,
and so he saw her as a beautiful woman, and he wanted to take from her. And so he approached her in that way where he wanted to, assault her. And as soon as she approached him in that way, and there's different teachings on this, but the way I was taught was that a cloud of energy came down and she turned him into dust. So the point is of all of these stories is that she transformed his form into something else so that he could no longer continue to spread that dark energy that was inside of him. And so that's a teaching that I share a lot, is that there is an infection or a disease that some people have within them, and it can be from any nation. So you have to be careful who you deal with, because there are people who can have bad hearts from any nation.
mhm,
And so, but because of that energy that he carried and the way he chose to live his life, she returned him back to source. She transformed his form into something else. And so after that happened, she told the other warrior who had a good heart, she sent him back to his people and she said to tell them to prepare for my arrival. And so I'm going to connect that to now. No, actually, let me move forward. So
mhm,
several days later, she returned and she was carrying a bundle. And when she was welcomed into the teepee and she opened up this bundle, there were medicines in there. There were different there were different things in that bundle, but the most important thing that she, or the most significant, I would say, is the chanupa, which is a prayer pipe.
Mm-hmm.
So she presented this chanupa to the people, and she taught them its significance, how to use it, how to pray with it, the medicines that you would put inside of that, and the songs that would come with it. And through this pipe, we would be able to pray and send our prayers up to the Creator, and that anything was possible through this chanupa, or this pipe. And then, so from that visit came all of our sacred ceremonies, the 7 sacred ceremonies that we still practice to this day,
Mm-hmm.
like the Inipi, or the sweat lodge, the Sundance ceremony, the Hamdecha, or the vision quest, the praying with the pipe ceremony, the making of relatives, the coming of age ceremonies. All of these ceremonies came from the teachings that she brought, and all of them integrate the chanupa, or the pipe. And so she said that these ceremonies would see us through what would be coming. And I want to tie that in with other prophecies that speak to, like Crazy Horse. He said that we would endure generations upon generations of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, it's not that I believe, it's that I know that these teachings saw us through. We're still here because of that pipe, because of these teachings, because of these ceremonies. And we are the keepers of these ceremonies. We're the keepers of this pipe, this chanupa. And she said that, so she said that there would be different ages coming, and these ages were symbolized by her turning her form into a buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And she would roll over. Four times she rolled over and was a different color of a buffalo, which symbolized the different ages that were coming.
Mm-hmm.
The last time she rolled over, she turned into a white buffalo. So this symbolized the final age of where we're at now. And white has nothing to do with a race of people. It's a symbol of warning, but also a symbol of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said that when you will know that there is a time coming when you will need me again, and you will know that I will be returning to you, or that I'm walking with you again through the birth of white buffalo. And so we're seeing that now. We're seeing all these white buffalo that are being born more and more every year. So occasionally I will share on my platforms about this white buffalo as a sign of hope to us Indigenous nations, to us people of the earth. It's a sign of hope, because we've been enduring so much suffering,
So much
generations,
pain.
yes, upon generations. When is it going to end? So these are signs of hope for us, but they're also a warning to people to choose to look at the way, like these first 2 warriors in that teaching, that story. They had a choice to live a certain way or to not live a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more important about the choices that they made rather as to who they were. 2 warriors on the plain. It's the choice that they made. One chose to see that woman as sacred and respected her. And so we can look at all of our relatives that way. How are we going to treat one another? Are we going to choose to honor each other for the sacredness that we have, the sacredness of the earth, the sacredness of all of our relatives on this earth, plant, animal, spirit, elemental, human nations? That's what I'm speaking about when I say relatives. Or are we going to choose the path that bad-hearted warrior chose, which was to take from something that he saw as not as powerful, something that he thought that he could take from, to fill the emptiness within his own self, to feed that ugliness that was inside of him. And so it's when we see that white buffalo, it's a warning now for people you can keep choosing that path, but there is going to be a time when these relatives who come from the spirit world are going to return. And there's many prophecies that connect to this. We have white buffalo calf women in our in our tradition, but then in other ways, they have other prophets who are said to be returning in these times for their people to help their people through. And so I believe that now we're in these times where we have to prepare now for her return because she's coming and she has the power to draw a boundary line to protect her people.
Yeah, I think like you just said, it's the choices that we can make or we make as individuals, and which direction we choose, then it's up to us.
Absolutely. So free will is everything. We always have a choice in everything that we make, but there's definitely going to be a consequence. And maybe for generations, those who chose to make decisions based on greed or from a place that's not a place of evolution, that's not a place that advances but only takes, then those people are going to have to answer for that. And so I always like to share those teachings because I want to remind people that not only will one day you have to pay, are you going to have to pay for those choices that you made, but also on the other end, those who choose to live with a high vibrational frequency, those who choose to live the way of this earth and
Just to live in
to
harmony.
yes, to live in harmony, to live in a way where we're choosing for the benefit of all of our relatives, then there is coming a time soon when we are not going to be affected by that sickness anymore. We're going to be protected by it. But everybody has a choice up until that point of which path they are going to choose. Therefore, their destiny.
It's like they say, karma. Karma
Yes,
will
it's a
come and
real
get them.
thing. Yes. And I like to think of it as natural law.
Yes.
So universal law.
Universal law,
And
yeah.
yep. And there's a certain amount of time that this darkness has been given to allow people to have the choice to decide what kind of a reality they're going to be living with after this boundary line is drawn. And boundary line can be an astrological transit, you know. These ascended masters, as you know, however you want to describe them, these spiritual spirit form leaders who are said to be returning, these prophets who are said to be returning, they do have a vast spiritual power to enforce such things. So exactly what happened 19 generations ago when she turned that one warrior to dust can happen again.
What advice would you give someone who's looking, who is in a state of healing themselves? What advice would you give them? Which direction should they go?
I would say always, no matter what stage of healing you are, the most important thing to learn how to do is to connect with your true, authentic self. So it may help to receive teachings and guidance from others, but ultimately our goal is to be able to tune in enough with our own source, with our own light, with our own guidance system in order to receive those answers that we're looking for in order to heal ourselves. Ultimately, that's what we're the goal is. And I've been on a healing journey for a long time where there was a long time that I needed to have the guidance of a mentor or a spiritual leader in order to understand that it was even possible, certain things, to even know that would, you know, to learn even dreams, for example, even to know that dreams held deep
Meanings.
significance. Yes. So in the way that I was raised, I was told they had no meaning and it was just my mind creating things for me. And no, now at this point, I understand that we can leave our bodies, that we can go back to where our original source, and that we can receive incredibly deep and meaningful downloads from the spirit world through our dreams. And so ultimately, learn to trust your intuition. And intuition can be as simple as thinking about, you have two choices, right? And if something gives you a nauseous feeling or an uncomfortable feeling of any form, so it's tuning into the messages that your body's giving you. And even if everyone around you tells you you're crazy, trusting the feelings, the messages that are coming through your bodies, that your body's telling you that whether something is right for you or not,
Mm-hmm.
through those feelings that's coming up, the more that you follow that and then follow your heart, your excitement, your passion, despite what anybody around you says, despite what society says, despite of the naysayers, the more you follow that, the more you develop your intuition and your guidance system. Because there will come times that you're completely alone. You won't be able to call your mentor. You won't be able to receive spiritual guidance from anything outside of yourself. And you're going to need to have that system intact. So always tuning into your body, tuning into your heart, and having the courage to choose that above everything externally will develop to eventually you needing nothing but your intuition, your own internal guidance system as your ultimate form of healing.
Mm. I love that you said that, because going back and looking into my own young adulthood, age 20 and up, um, used to always have very, very good intuition. But then what happened is somehow, again, you get tied up with different things and, the crazy things that you do as a teenager or young adult. And yeah, for a long time was not listening to my own intuition. And I am very connected spiritually myself. Um, and I lost that ability. Like into my 30s, I remember, I was getting sick because I was just not listening to what my body was saying. And about I want to say 9 years ago, I think finally I had a breakthrough. And still taking me a long time. I'm still going through the process of accepting and really 100% tune in within my body and listen to these messages, because I know I have them and we all have them. So the more we tune in, the more we can actually, as you said, it comes from the heart, right? And then
Yes,
your life's going to be better, or at least you will find a way to heal or to help others. That's how I
right.
look at it.
And it's a peace. Peace comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that we can find ourselves in really tumultuous situations externally,
Mm-hmm.
but the more that we can disconnect from that by tuning into our own guidance system, our intuition. Because within our internal guidance system, we all have a team of helpers
Mm-hmm.
that are with us, ancestors, even, going out to nature and all the elemental plant nations, the spirit nations. Those are all very real things.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you don't find that there's other humans around that you can, reflect off of each other or interact with, there's all of this other world that's there for us, that in this the condition of our world today, so many people have been purposely disconnected from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we reconnect with that, the more that we can collectively heal each other. First of all, heal ourselves, then we heal each other through the way that, because if you're healing yourself, you're not going to be passing on abuse to other people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So collectively we're healing, and then through that we're helping our earth to heal as well, because I think we're the only species living out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having a huge effect on the health of our earth.
Mm.
And if our earth is unhealthy, then we are unhealthy because we are the earth.
It's the respect that we need to have.
Yes.
for the
And
earth.
then,
Yeah.
respect for ourselves too. So if
Hmm.
you respect yourself, you're not going to be treating things externally with disrespect.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter, who's going to be turning 18, um, on the beginning, I was a little bit worried because she doesn't like to be around people, and I've asked her for many, many years now. I'm like, why you don't like to be around the people? And she said to me straight up, she's like, "Mommy, it's the energy. I can be around people that have bad energy." So what she loves, I mean, we live in the country surrounded by beautiful forest up here in Quebec, and she loves to be outside. She'll go put her clothes on and she'll go for a walk up in the forest. And she goes, "I just connect with the trees, and I love the water. We have a river not far away from us, and she'll go there and she'll sit there in silence." And in the beginning as a teen, like, as she started her, 14, 15, I was kind of like, maybe come on, honey, you need to have friends. And she's like, "Mom, I don't." So I feel like she is such an old soul, and she's so much more connected. Then at the same time, I said, "You know what? You have to do you. I am so happy that you are connecting with Mother Earth and yourself, and you know who you are, that I kind of backed away from it." And, she's happy. And I had to accept that. So, yeah, it's
Yes.
beautiful.
That is, and good for her, because
Hmm.
that's a rare thing that,
Very rare.
yes, for someone to be comfortable within themselves and then to have that deep connection with
Mm.
earth, with nature. It's really a beautiful place because, she is standing in her power
Hmm.
fully, and she doesn't need to seek validation from others. She is enriched by nature, which is what we're trying to get many people into. If you really truly want to heal, go to nature and sit with yourself. And that's where you start to hear your helpers. That's where you start
Hmm.
to hear the earth. That's where, and so that's so beautiful to hear, because I see that this younger generation that's coming in are some powerhouses. There
Hmm.
are many very aware, and they were born that way, very aware, very strong-headed, very like, you can't tell me how to think, feel, behave, act,
Hmm.
do. I'm in control. I am a sovereign being. And so that's very refreshing to hear, because having friends isn't everything, you know.
Hmm.
It certainly isn't.
Well,
And
I
at
went through
this,
my own stage of friends, so yes.
yeah, there can be a lot of misdirection that comes from a
Yeah.
friend group.
Yeah.
That's very refreshing to hear. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
that.
you. Yeah, I'm very happy for her. She's definitely a big light, and I know she'll do good things in life. So I'm super happy for her. Yeah. What message do you hope to convey through your work?
I would say the biggest message of my book is helping people to, or I would hope that it helps people to understand that they are not alone. And no matter what you might be facing, especially in these times that are coming, where the chaos and confusion is really being amplified in a last ditch effort to keep us trapped within a world that doesn't serve us,
Mhm.
is that no matter what you're going through, no matter if you're physically alone or not, there you are never alone, because there is an entire realm in the unseen world of helpers. There's an internal guidance system within you that will always see you through the darkness,
Mhm.
and that learning to connect with that, tuning into that, is going to be what sees you through anything.
Mm.
And so that I hope that people continue to choose themselves, to love themselves, and to realize that the chaos and confusion that seems to be increasing is a strategy to keep us in trapped in a lower vibrational frequency
Mhm.
so that we can't break through.
Mhm.
However, we are according to prophecy, according to astrological transits, according to the messages that many of us are receiving through dreams, through intuition, etc. We are at this point that many of us have been preparing generations for, that we can finally break free and raise the entire frequency of this earth. And so I would say keep holding on, keep developing your intuition, keep trusting yourself, and keep listening to that guidance system that exists within you. And we will see, with if not in this lifetime, perhaps the next lifetime, what we dream of, what we know is possible.
Yes. Can you share a little bit more about your book, the Thunderbird Rising, and
Mhm.
how and where can people get your book?
Okay. So my book is called Thunderbird Rising, and it's a memoir of reconnection, resilience, and empowerment. So I tell my story from the beginning about what I had to go through as a child and my adulthood, many situations that would probably end a lot of people. And my motivation to write this book came from one of my friends taking their life. And so I share a lot of my experiences that I went through because I've been in that place many times of not wanting to be here anymore. And so I wanted to share, I've been through it too. But look at all these beautiful experiences that I had along the way. For example, my grandfather coming in dreams and waking me up to the beauty that does exist in my culture. And all of us have something beautiful that we can reach into from our ancestral line that can help us connect to the beauty that does exist in a very dark world. And so it's at the core of it, my book is about exploring the beauty that exists in the chaos, the light that can come from being steeped and buried in darkness, like the way that a diamond is formed from extreme pressure. And it's transformed from an ordinary piece of stone or coal into something that's incredibly valuable and hardened and well structured, and that we all can have that opportunity too. And this is what I came from: darkness, pain, suffering, and this is what I've made from it. And so it's sharing the things along my journey that helped me realize that there is such a beautiful world, and my connection to the spirit world. So it's a very spiritual take on it, of my own experience of discovering that aspect of myself, even though I wasn't raised that way. Even though I didn't have many physical teachers to teach me about that, I had the spirit world that came and taught me. I had my ancestors that came and taught me. And so I'm sharing that, and through my own story, I hope to help inspire others to know that they're never alone, and that if you can tap into that yourself and trust yourself, then you too can overcome anything. So my book is recently republished through Ingram Spark. So it's available. I have my website, stephbigeagle.com, has links to where it's available. You can find it on worldwide on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobe Books, many different options for it. If you just search Thunderbird Rising by Stephanie Big Eagle, you should be able to find it. And you can also ask your library or your local bookstore to carry it, and they should be able to get that for you.
Wonderful. Definitely got a couple libraries here that I will definitely bring that book up. So it's
Amazing.
important because we do also have here a lot of Indigenous communities as well. So it's really nice to connect with anybody. As you said, there's no there's no meaning of the color of the skin. I think we are all one, and coming together as one and connecting within those roots with a loving heart and the loving, everything, the nature and humanity and animals and everything. I think that's what's the most important thing. So,
I agree.
um,
Mhm.
looking ahead, what are you hoping for the future or for the new generations?
I am hoping that the future generations don't have to go through the level of suffering that many of
Mm-hmm.
us have had to endure. And I wish nothing more than for my children to have peace, to have a close relationship with the earth, and to see people actually respecting one another despite the color of their skin. Because we are spirits more than anything. We are spirits and we're here for an experience. We're here to help our spirits evolve into something greater. And so I really hope to see people moving past such low vibrational ideas like racism and separation and judgment. I don't want to ever see my children or my grandchildren and the lines coming from me having to go through what I had to go through in my life
Mm-hmm.
just because of people who are so filled with hatred,
Mm-hmm.
with that disease, with that infection of separation. I hope to see that snuffed out in my lifetime, in the next lifetime, so that we as humanity can actually know peace, can actually know our power, and can have a beneficial and symbiotic relationship with the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and to know our place in it, which we are meant to be giving back. We are meant to be uplifting all of our relatives on this planet and in the cosmos. So we do have that power, but it's always a choice.
We've been we've been going through a lot of pain. I think the humanity in general for centuries and centuries, and I really hope the same that one day I have three children of my own. I'm not sure about yourself, but I'm passing the same message to my kids, so that way their lives much in a better shape than I was when I was growing up. And same thing with their generation. So I really hope for the same thing. So really, really appreciate you coming on, and also want to ask you any final thoughts that you would like to share with the audience.
Yes, I just want to address the the tumultuous environment that we're seeing. I remember a couple weeks back, everybody was talking about the orbs in New Jersey and the orbs and the drones,
Mm-hmm.
and to 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 be aware of the attempt of those who wanted to keep us trapped in a matrix or a 3D world. The number one way to do that is to keep people in stress, to keep people scared or in those lower vibrational energies. So the more that we can tune into that higher vibration and to remember, okay, these relatives from the stars were showing themselves to us, and they're going to continue to show themselves to us, to remember that we're not alone, to tap into our own intuition and our internal guidance system and our helpers, and to, as much as we can, maintain that higher frequency within ourselves, and to not get weighed down by the distractions, by these last ditch efforts of certain governments and authoritative figures who do not have our best interests in mind, who do not want us to break free from their systems that have been designed to trap us and to harvest our energy. To remember that, to, yes, stay aware and stay informed and to protect yourself, but to tune out as much as possible and to continue to go out into nature, to work on your meditations, your practices that help to bring healing to yourself and others, and to have that be your most of priority, because they are going to only tune up the chaos and confusion as we continue to get closer to the point of the return of our prophets, our ascended masters, who are going to be walking with us on this same earth. and to think about the choices that we have to make and the paths that we have. One is destruction, which is what they're choosing, which they want to keep us trapped here with them, right? We don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to choose another way. So tap into yourself and choose that path of balance and harmony, and of a close relationship with our earth and all of our relatives here on it. And just
Turn off
whenever,
that noise
that's
and
right.
connect yourself with nature, connect yourself with anything to get distracted.
Exactly.
Turn off the TV. Don't watch the news. For me, biggest thing is listen to a lot of inspirational people like yourself, where again, like you said, raising that vibration. It's a big thing for me.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and what you do. I really, really appreciate you coming on, Stephanie. Thank you so much. We'll definitely post the all the information about you, how people can reach you at the end of the notes. So again, God bless. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.